Sup folks, my name is Georgie Grimm and today's video is going to be a little bit different than what I normally post. Yesterday at about 6 p.m. I got an alert that there was a active shooter on our campus, and so I of course was like terrified. At first I got the text from my mom and she had apparently gotten a call from the university saying that there was an active shooter on our campus, and I was grateful that my mom was the one to tell me this, even though I had also gotten the notifications as well. It was still really scary and really traumatizing, and like I didn't know how to react in the situation. And I feel like I went into shock, and I feel like a lot of people do because you don't really know how to react to a situation like that. Even when you're in that kind of situation, you don't know how to react. Fortunately, I was safe. I was home when this was all happening, and so I was not in a building that was unfamiliar and being locked down, but I was safe in my dorm room when this was all happening, and so that alleviated a lot of the anxiety. Also, this was all a false alarm and there was no actual active shooter on campus. It was all just a big misunderstanding. It had started in one building. Someone had claimed that they'd heard gunshots, and there's no solidified evidence of where. This just kind of like the whole situation kind of just made me realize how crazy America is right now. The fact that we have even like false alarms such as like active shooters being on campus. The fact that, you know, this is just something that like happens in the US nowadays is so horrifying to me to know that, because to me that's like something that shouldn't be happening, and we need to get gun control. We need gun control so badly. This is a serious issue that needs to be addressed, and we cannot continue living like this. This is not okay. To not feel safe on your own campus is like the worst thing that you could possibly imagine, because you spend all of your time on campus. If you're like me and you live on campus, then you spend all of your time on campus. And to have that fear instilled within you that at any moment somebody could, you know, pull out a gun and fucking like murder everyone is terrifying. And to know that my school, that seemingly to me is a mostly unknown college, and that you wouldn't think of our school to be a victim of a mass shooting, although this once again was a false alarm, thank God. It just, I guess it just kind of goes to show that no matter where you are in the US, things like this can happen, and they come out of nowhere, and it comes out of the blue, and it's surprising, and you don't know how to react in that situation. It's one of those situations where your fight or flight turns on and you're like, oh my God, what do I do in this situation? My initial response was mostly to just make sure that all of my loved ones were okay, that all my friends were okay, and that everyone I cared about knew about the situation, and that I was okay and safe, and that they didn't have to worry, and that I'd keep them updated. That was what I did, because in those types of situations, I always want to be sure that everyone knows that I'm okay, and that I have the situation under control to some capacity, and that they don't need to worry about me. That entire situation as a whole just really got to me. And I guess what is getting me the most is how unpredictable times like these are, and how I'm gonna put a light on myself because I forgot to do that. I'm so sorry. Transitioning with the light, just accept it and move on. It's like when the horde of texting just like starts happening and I'm like, oh my God, please stop, I'm trying to film. Back into it. What I was saying, where I was going with this thought, was that in times like these right now, in moments of uncertainty and stress where you don't know what is going to happen today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, who knows? Especially now when our country is currently so politically divided to the point where people are saying that this is the most divided our country has been since the Civil War. And to know that is so horrifying to me, because you don't know who's out there. What I'm trying to say is that our country is under extreme stress right now, and I don't know what the future holds, to be honest with you, and it's really scary to think about that, mostly because I don't know if our next president is going to be better than our current president is, and if our next president is going to fix everything that our current president has fucked up and essentially screwed us over for a long, long time. But I have high faith and high hopes that whoever comes next in office is going to be somebody who is going to help the American people and actually do what should have been done a long time ago and fix our country. And so I see this more or less as a political issue because we need to start talking about gun control. Gun violence didn't happen around me or where I lived often because of the community that I grew up in, that I was privileged enough to grow up into. And so the fact that gun violence is so prominent nowadays terrifies me because the biggest mass shooting that I'd ever learned about in high school was the Columbine shooting. And that was the one everybody knew about. That was the big one that everyone talked about. And so that was the base knowledge that I had as a kid growing up when I heard about shootings and when I learned about shootings in schools. And that's what I would always think about. And so even though I was very fortunate to not have this happen to me and that this was a false alarm, that we didn't face the actual repercussions of a mass shooting. And I'm so fucking grateful that this was a false alarm. But just to think about the fact that even if it was real, and even if this actually did happen, and that, hold on, let me fix my nose. I fixed it up a little bit. Girls and boys, and my non-binary. Hello, darkness. You know the tea, sis. I need to also fix my makeup a little. Back to the serious shit. You have to make it a little bit light here and there because I don't like being serious. I like having fun. I like laughing. I like to not be talking about sad things like these. But sometimes you have to, because sometimes things like this happen to you and you just kind of have to say something about it because that's what you should do when you have a situation like this happen to you. But that's pretty much honestly all I'm gonna say is that I'm grateful to still be alive. That sounds really fucked up, but it's true. I'm grateful to still be alive. I'm grateful that this wasn't an actual incident and that this was just a false alarm. So listen, here's the thing. This is a video that's being filmed on a later date in which you're currently watching. This is kind of like an out-of-body experience, if you will. Yes, I am wearing the same thing that I'm wearing in the video, but this is me coming from about a week later when I filmed this video. This video clearly is not really part of the whole, I was gonna say series. It's the video. This video is out of context in a way, but I wanted to bring up something really interesting that I had learned today that I was talking about this whole situation with what happened with the fake shooter and all that. So I was talking to one of my friends, and I know I had said this in the video that the school responded in a way that I thought was pretty good, except I definitely disagree with that statement now because I had realized that a lot of people, because of this situation was so traumatic and so out of the blue and so unusual, that it affected a lot of people in this situation very negatively, obviously, because it's a situation that people don't normally deal with, and this is something that is really scary and really overwhelming, and that whether or not the situation is real, it will affect you the same way that it would if it was real, and that's really fucking terrifying. And so I was talking to a lot of my friends, and they'd said that they don't feel safe and that they don't feel like the school handled it in a way that they felt comfortable. And I agree with them. I do. And I think that the school could have at least had one day off. And with all this snow that we've been experiencing as well, we have at least 7 feet. 7 inches, not 7 feet. That's a lot of snow. Sorry. It's absolutely insane out there. There's at least 7 inches of snow on the ground. Close to a foot is what I'm looking at right now. It's pretty fucking deep. We've had ice, had that fucking fake shooter thing happen. It's honestly one thing after the next. And my school hasn't given us a day off. And I personally chose to take the day off on Friday because I just could not do it. I just didn't want to go to school because I was like, you know what, this shit, I'm not trying to be here right now. And so it really just kind of boiled down to the fact that I don't think my school really understands the situation. And I'm kind of disappointed in our school's way of dealing with this. And yes, I do still agree with the fact that the police did handle this in the best way that they possibly could have, and that they did the investigation, carried out with their procedures in the best possible way. But I don't think that the way that the school is handling the aftermath very properly, because it seemingly feels like they just kind of swept it under the rug and we're not talking about it anymore when we should be, because this is a serious issue that needs to be addressed and not just swept under the rug and not worried about or anything like that. I personally don't feel as though we're handling it in the way that we should be. And it was funny because, as I said in the video that you're currently watching, I'm sorry, my brain is in a million places at once. I'd said that the school had done a great job of helping students and giving them counseling, and then I was talking to my friend and she brought up an interesting thought that I hadn't thought about earlier, which was, if they're, not seemingly treating this like a real situation, then why are they giving students counseling? you know? It's kind of weird. It doesn't really make sense, where it's like, if the university is trying to make it seem like this wasn't as big of a deal as it actually was, then why are they giving students counseling? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't really line up, and that doesn't really make sense. And as I'm looking more and more into this entire situation, a lot of it doesn't line up. A lot of it doesn't actually make sense or line up with what actually happened. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist right now, but honestly, I can't really help it, because it's just kind of the way my brain kind of thinks and works and figures out problems and all that stuff and whatever. But honestly, this is kind of weird. The whole thing where it started in one building and then people were tweeting, this was all happening over Twitter. All these claims were being made on Twitter, and so there was a lot of misinformation being sent out. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of, I don't know whether or not this person is, you know, telling the truth or not, and it was a lot of really confusing information being sent out. But the only true source of information that I felt as though they actually put proper information out there was the Ellensburg Observer on Twitter, and they had properly put out information that was keeping up to date about what the situation was and what was happening and what was next and all that. And I felt as though they did an incredible job, and that they were the only reliable source on Twitter that was putting out information, and that every other source from a student or whatever was completely false, because nobody really knew what was happening, and so therefore it was false. And I stand by that claim, because despite the fact that one student may have heard something, that information, until proven otherwise, is false. And unfortunately, that's just kind of how it happens, and that's kind of how it goes. And with a lot of issues like this, with the whole fiasco of a fake shooter, is really concerning. And I know I'd already addressed this, and I won't really talk too much about it, but it really goes to show how powerful the internet is, and how powerful social media is, and how powerful fake news is, because essentially this entire situation was fake news. To really say something about it, it was entirely fake news. And there may have been an actual threat, or there may have not been. But the fact of the matter is that our school has not sent out proper information. I know I'd said also that the school gave us like a breakdown of each hour of what was happening on each hour, but even still, that really gave a vague description of what was actually happening. I mean, nobody actually knows who the kid was that was making those claims about shooting up the school. But there was a kid, and we don't know if he was being questioned. And so the fact of the matter is that misinformation is a huge thing nowadays. We, as the American people, I sound so fucking Republican, and I'm just like so not Republican, and I don't like that. Our responsibility as people here in this nation is to hold ourselves accountable, hold each other accountable, and really look into the situation, look for evidence, look for proper information, and don't make claims until you know the absolute truth. And that's about it. But unfortunately, we don't live in that type of society, and people like to make claims before they know the full truth. And so it makes it very difficult to know if what they're saying is real and what they're saying is false. So I don't like that we live in this age where information is being leaked and you don't know if this is accurate information being stated or if it's false, fake news, whatever. And so there's a lot of that, and that's something that I also wanted to bring up in this video, because I didn't bring it up. As I'm editing this video, I'm seeing that this was not in the video, and I needed to bring up more information because there's more information being brought to me. I felt the need to say what I'd learned, because that part of the video would be incredibly lacking. And so I'm having a lot of issues with my school right now, and I retract my statement in saying that they did a good job, because I don't think they did. I actually don't think they did. I take that back. I completely do. I'm grateful that they gave the information that they did. I'm grateful that they handled the procedures in the way that they did, as, you know, the police did, but I don't think that the way they handled the day after very well. There were like no people in my classes the next day, because I braved it because I wanted to be, you know, in class, because I like my education, obviously, but that's not me trying to bash on the people who didn't go to class, because I did not go to class on the next day because I was like, you know what, fuck that. So yeah, people are not happy with the president at my school currently. People are not happy with the president of the United States of America either. So this is a whole situation that I really wish didn't happen to me, but it did. It's just kind kind of a whole thing. You know what I mean? And I don't know. So that's my 2 cents on the rest of the situation. I'll put this in the video. Video will continue as it does, and that's pretty much it. All I can say is that whatever will happen is going to be for life to determine. And I pray to God that I am never in this situation again. And I pray to God that no one that I know is going to be in this situation ever. And I pray to God that none of you will ever be in this situation. Stay safe, everyone. Hug your loved ones a little bit closer because you don't know what could happen. I love you guys. Take care. See you guys next week. Okay, thanks. Bye.